All right, so today we're going to do something a little different here. My wife bought an Aqua Tru under sink filter. I guess it's a reverse osmosis filter. We do have pretty hard well water here, and so out of an abundance of caution, we're going to install the filter, and I guess we have like a remineralizer with it too. She's done the research for it, but I'm doing the install. We're about, oh, I don't know, 15, 20 miles or so from the Continental Divide. And there's very few agricultural waste products in between us and where the water drains from in the mountains. So it's pretty unlikely that we have a ton of bad stuff, but we certainly could get stuff leaching out of the rocks, you know, maybe chemicals that have been coming down from there. So it's just a nice thing to actually have the extra abundance of protection. We'll go through kind of all of the pieces with this. I'm sure there's a bunch of videos out there installing one of these. This is doing it in our kitchen right here. And before we get started, excuse the mess a little bit, but just wanted to show, I haven't shown much inside my house yet. This is where we're gonna be installing all of the filter stuff under the sink. But I did a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago or so, built these cabinets. These ones are still in process and need to be painted, but you can see the outline of them at least. My wife wanted a nice sort of appliance cabinet here. Hutch on top of the shelf. We have been using melamine countertops for a few years, so they're a little beat up at this point, but I am going to pour some countertops or put in an installed one. We haven't decided quite yet, but we'll get there soon. Also did these cabinets, did one of these huge, you know, 8-foot tall. So I'm a little over 6 foot here, and you can see this is quite a tall cabinet. I looked at, you know, the cost and the pricing on something like this in terms of buying it, and even at the time, a couple of years ago, it was something like over $2,000 for just one of these cabinets. And back when I was buying the cabinet plywood then, it was 60 bucks a sheet. I think it's 90 bucks a sheet now. But back then, I think I did this cabinet here, this one, it was definitely 150 or under. So you can do a lot and save a lot of money on your cabinets if you actually just do it by yourself. A little side note, since we haven't been in the kitchen before, but we'll get back to the install of the filter. So let's go through. Okay, 4-stage reverse osmosis. We've got some drain lines and water lines here. It does come with its own little faucet. So you pretty much have a complete faucet that's only for your filtered drinking water. Got a bunch of the filters, and they're all color-coded. Got a bunch of the hardware, comes with Teflon tape. And one thing that I did see with this is that it does require you to tap into the drain line down here. And I don't know if I like that system a lot, but as far as I can tell, it is pretty functional still, but I don't like drilling into the drain line and having like a compression fitting around it. Doesn't seem like the best system to me, but time will tell. We'll see how it functions. Even if it doesn't end up working, I can always figure something out and replace a little piece of ABS down there. It comes with this storage tank, which is interesting. I guess it filters into the tank and then pulls from the tank itself. Just looks like this. And from the reviews I've read, it does seem like it's not too difficult to get it cleaned out or send a cleaner through. But I'll have to look into it a little more and we'll see how it goes over time. All right, so here's everything laid out. I didn't just do this for the video. I actually do this most of the time when I'm installing something, especially step-by-step things. For whatever reason, I build and create much better out of my head, just kind of going with it and having a loose plan that I created. When it's a plan that someone else has set up, it always takes me way longer, so I need to lay everything out nicely. Some people are the opposite, but as far as I'm concerned, I have to do this to really understand what's going on. This is that little clamp drain I talked about. This is the top for the tank here. You can see these are nicely color-coded for each thing. Pretty much impossible to mess it up as far as that part's concerned. It's also labeled on each of the connection points, like where it goes to the tank and the faucet and the drain. You've got all the hose you're gonna need here. Got a bunch of Teflon tape, and then you've got some little adapters that they use on the water inlets. And then there are little on and off stops here as well for the water. So let's see how it all goes together here. The first thing I'm doing is I'm using these Knipex, the flat based channel locks. And one thing I really like about these is they're adjustable and go back and forth and clamp pretty well, but they don't mark up everything because you have these flat bases. It's very much almost like a fixed wrench. Just a nice little thing to have. But I need to check the size for this adapter. What happens is though, you put the adapter on here and this main water line goes up to your sink still, and that is unfiltered. But there's an additional line that comes onto it that runs through the filter. The next step is it says to go ahead and take the connector here. And this is that little adapter that the end of your normal sink hose goes back up here. This taps on to your inlet line. And then you put this little water line on here. They say to do this first and lock it in place. Slide it on, pop it in there for a good friction fit, then screw it on and tighten it down. Pretty easy. That part looks pretty set and pretty solid. I assume I'm gonna have to cut this line off later, but we'll kind of tuck it back here for now, just so it's out of the way. Then we put the adapter on the water inlet. Although, might need some Teflon tape on that. Let's see. It does say to put Teflon tape on here, so we will go ahead and do so. When you're wrapping Teflon tape, at least this is how I do it. I'm sure a plumber could correct me, but I'm just a lowly DIY guy, so I always do it in the direction of the threads, and that way it doesn't twist itself off of there. So since it's going to be twisting down this way, I'm wrapping the tape this way. So now we can take this, and they say to wrap it around here. You can see I put it that same direction. So that Teflon tape should lock it nicely in place. I would not do just finger tight. That's not the best idea, I don't think. But you also don't want to go too crazy. Crank down on it a little, but not go nuts with it. Then they do suggest to also put Teflon tape on the other one. And honestly, plumbing is probably one of those things that I feel least equipped to do, even though it does seem simple on some fronts. For whatever reason, the more complex systems just kind of elude me sometimes. So I'm putting this main water line on. So this is where the inlet is for the water that's getting filtered. This is my main water line. And then when I open this little switch, all that water passes through to the filter, and the unfiltered water just passes through to the sink itself. All right, there we go. There's the first step. All right, so the next thing you're gonna do is they have you hook up this little compression drain piece onto your drain. I don't love this system, but supposedly it works, so we will do it and we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't, again, I can easily replace this. Don't mind the beautiful connection pieces of plumbing here. I did that mostly for ease of access. At some point, maybe I'll glue some stuff in. This is where I think I'm gonna put it right here. Clamp around that, and then it can just drain nicely right out where it needs to go. First, I have to drill a 1/4-inch hole into the drain. Let's do this at a mildly downward angle. Just through one side, not through two. There's my hole. Make sure it's actually clean. Next step is use this fitting kit. And the way you connect these together, it looks like, is there are some slots for the nuts on the back, so you don't have to use 2 wrenches or anything, which is nice. And you just drop the nut in like that. Then this side, you have the bolt. And it looks like all you gotta do is just thread it in place while holding it back there. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to line this up nicely, exactly where I drilled my hole. Use my phone as an extra flashlight here. just because I don't have another one on me. I guess one little trick for this I could do. We'll see if this works or not. I'm making this up on the fly. So I just took a smaller drill bit here and I'm gonna put it through till it goes. This is my smaller one, not the 1/4 inch. And goes nicely into that spot. Then it actually lines up where it needs to. Turns out that works. Let's make sure that's on nice and straight. Probably should just use a screwdriver here, but I have my impact here. And I'll just go slow. There we go. And actually this drill bit's doing a good job of just kind of holding it in place here and kind of rocking it into where it needs to be. I don't want to overdo it here for sure, but I do want it to be snug. You can always tighten it up more later. All right, there's step 2. Well, I feel stupid, but you know, that's part of what this is. Might as well show you what I did wrong too. I'm an idiot and put this drain on, not even thinking about it, after the P-trap. So now it's just gonna let sewer gases leak up into the drain. So instead of doing that, I guess what I need to do is I need to put it over here. I don't have a ton of room to work with in here, but if I put it here, closer to the top or somewhere in the middle here, it's still behind the P-trap and it won't let the sewer gases leak back. Like I said, at some point I need to replace this anyway. Looks like I'm going to be doing that today. I'm going to leave this on here for now, but in a bit, I'm going to get everything else in place. Then I'll come back, go get some parts, and I'll do this last. At least I cut it early. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to drill a hole in order for this faucet to actually be able to dispense the water out. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch bit. It looks like that's going to fit. A little paddle bit should be fine. Again, if you have granite or concrete or whatever it is, some kind of stone, you're going to have to make sure you get a bit that can go through stone. Make sure you drill very carefully through that, but it can be done for sure. This, like I said, is very easy because it's just this melamine, and we're gonna pour over it later with another countertop probably. And just make sure that you're clear of anything else underneath when you're drilling. You don't want to puncture something. Right there. I have it lined up with my other faucet here, so it just makes it look a little more symmetrical. There we go. Punch through. Made it just a little bit bigger. My wife is a property manager as well, and she does a lot of cleaning of vacation rentals around here. And I'll tell you what, these cordless Dysons, they're pricey, but my goodness, are they effective. Obviously not sponsored or anything like that. They work well. Although on second thought, Dyson, if you're watching, my wife would be a great sponsor for you because she uses these things every single day. Or, you know, you could sponsor her if I could speak correctly. So it looks like you put this decorative plate on with this little gasket that comes in there over top of here. And the 3/4 inch bit was actually just a little bit small, so I actually had to round it out a bit. You may want to go up a size from there. Just kind of see, maybe a 7/8 or something like that would work well. You see it sits pretty nicely going into the sink here, making sure it has enough reach to actually go into the sink when the water comes out. So it is not beautiful under here by any means. Looks like the next step though is that we're going to put the cap on the bottom where you see this thread coming out. I haven't made a pretty big under sink mount. It's still kind of tight in here. You put these two together and it looks like that's what seals it up nicely in between there. I'll just start by sliding this over here. Did I get lucky? I did. Whew. When I frame this thing out, I have this back plate and I didn't even consider it when drilling, so I got lucky. I mean, I planned it out the whole way, exactly like that, as I do with everything. That goes on pretty nicely. You can definitely see it snugs up well. I'm sure I'll have to adjust the top a little bit, but yeah, it's got a gasket on both sides there, so I think that's going to fit very nicely. Should be good. All right, so the next thing is we want to install this little quick adapter, and it has this O-ring that comes with it. So we're going to go ahead and put that inside of here, and this O-ring should do a pretty good job of sealing everything, making sure it doesn't leak. However, they do say you should put on some Teflon tape first, so we will do that. And again, I'm twisting this way, going clockwise. And when you get it started, obviously, as always with anything, make sure you don't cross thread it. So get it nice and easy. If it doesn't start easy, back it off and do it again. And I don't think you need to pull down as hard as you can on this plastic fitting. That seems like a bad idea, but you should definitely give it a little bit of a snug up. That's on nice and snug now. That's step 3. Step 4 here is to get this reverse osmosis storage tank all set up. So the way that they say to do that is to remove that cap. Then there's this little piece here, but you're supposed to take it apart first as it comes apart. And there's a little O-ring that they've hidden in there, and that is for another part here in just a second. All right. So the next part, they do want you, again, to pull this part apart. Then you want to put this O-ring to the side, and you're going to use it with this little adapter piece. Let's start with Teflon. Wrap that around. And they say to screw this piece on here. Get it just hand tight. This part is sticking out here. Now, they do say you should wrap Teflon on this piece as well. Some people might say, hey, I thought you did outdoor videos. I thought you did building stuff. Well, yeah, that is part of it. But again, this is a Rhett Mountain life, and a lot of these videos have to do with, hey, how do we survive and make it out here? Not that it's, you know, the old West House on the Prairie days by any means, but we do have a couple things that are maybe kind of unique. We heat with a wood stove. You know, we do have well water, which much of the country has well water, so that's not unusual. This is just one of those things that we do to reduce the potential impact of well water. We still live in a modern society, modern world, so might as well use some modern technology and filter it with that. We've been using a Berkey filter for a long time. So the next thing, they do ask you to put the O-ring inside of here. Get it quite all the way down, but it should snug down in there. Just screwing this in place. And it did show to hand tighten down to the downward facing position. There we go. That's what we want for the storage tank. I'm gonna mount the filters up on the wall here. Just gonna mark out where they need to go. So we can put this in here, right there. Tight quarters under here. There's one. All right, there's level for that. All right, so I'll try it right there. Next step here is they want you to install these filters, and it's really easy. They're all color coded. It's pretty much impossible to get it wrong unless you're colorblind like my dad is, I guess. Put it in like this, twist it in place, and make sure the red arrows line up. Hardest part of this whole thing is just working underneath the sink, like all sink plumbing is. It's just hard to get back in there and actually work. All right, same thing, blue to blue, right in there. All there is to it. These filters do come in like a vacuum sealed bag as well, so there's no dust or anything that gets in them. And do the last thing here. Same deal, lock it into place. And those are your 3 filters. Also extends out so you can do it underneath there if you replace them later. All right, so the next step here is we're gonna put the cold water outlet line into the filter here. Just gonna space this out just so I make sure I have enough and leave myself a little extra. Don't want to cut myself short of some line here. So we'll do this, go about right here. And I have this PEX cutter, but you can use a utility knife or anything. So we'll just do that. It says to not fray the edges too badly, but we want to go into the cold supply here. It looks like you have to remove. Huh, well that went flying. It's not ideal.
So apparently pull that thing off and pull out this drain stem. And what they say to do is push this tubing into the supply and make sure it goes in about 5/8 of an inch. Then you pull back out and it locks it in place. So we push in about 5/8 of an inch. When we pull out, it should lock in place just like the traditional shark bites do. I guess they're not traditional, they're kind of newer in the past 20 years, but then you pop that little thing back in place to make sure it's locked. Now we've got our cold supply line set up on this side. It looks like our next step here is to line up the one that says holding tank, and we're going to run that over to the holding tank, obviously. So again, remove that little stem in here. We do the same thing. Push this in 5/8 of an inch, pull out, make sure it's locked in place. And as you're pulling out on it, put this little horseshoe piece back in place. Once again, I'm going to give myself a little bit of room to work with. Our next one that we're going to line up here is the water faucet. Pushing it in, pull out, make sure it's locked, put the horseshoe in place. Same process, put the yellow hose into the drain line. There it is. So the next step, once again, the hard part is that you're all crammed in under the sink here. The next step is to get all these quick connects lined up with all of the labels that we put them on. This one here is the one that goes to the faucet, and it's the same process for all this. Push it in 5/8 of an inch till it locks, pull it out, and they do give you these extra little horseshoes for each one of these fittings to work. This is the line that goes up and actually feeds that faucet. Next one's my drain line, which we gotta wait because I need to fix that line where I made that mistake earlier. This one is the one that goes to the holding tank. This quick connect with the same process. So there's that holding tank. The other one is up here connected to our water line. Last thing we have to do is get all these filters locked in. Then I gotta fix my mistake that I made earlier. And as you can see, these do flip out. So if you need to replace the filters, it's pretty easy to do that. So here's me fixing my mistake from earlier. As you can see, this is before the P-trap now. Maybe a little bit in it, or just above it, but I don't think it's a huge problem. Once again, we are going to do put this horseshoe in place to make sure that lock is really on there. And I put this drain line up, so obviously not having a big swoop in it, you want it to be able to drain out with gravity pretty well. That's it. Back from the store and got some parts to replace this mistake I did. Beautiful. Bunch of sludge falling out of there. All right, one trick for cutting off cleaner edges is to put one of these coupling things on. Take a marker or a piece of tape. This is ABS, so I'm gonna do tape. Wrap the piece of tape around. Then you've got at least a pretty close to clean line to follow. And this is not gonna be a perfect cut, but it will be a lot better than if I just eyeballed it. Get to see all the gunk in there too, so that's fun. We'll clean that out. Yuck. And to go ahead and patch up what I probably should have fixed a long while ago anyways, instead of using that temporary coupler, we'll just go ahead and glue this all back together. Just gonna use this all-purpose cement. It goes for PVC and ABS. Let's make sure first that has a good fit. In my limited understanding of this, you mix it all up, put it on there, wait about 30 seconds. I mean, it's pretty straightforward as far as I've used it and been able to tell. A good amount of glue on there. Same on this side. Right here. Yes. Just make sure I don't miss anything. We're gonna start checking the system here now. And so what it says to do in the instructions is turn the water back on. Make sure we've got water flowing still here. Make sure our drains aren't leaking. I don't see anything yet. Okay. Then it says to slowly release this. Make sure there's no leaks. Okay. Then it says to turn this in line with the tank. So if it's to the side, it's closed. When it's up to the top like that, pointed up, it is open. So now I need to let everything fill for 1 to 2 hours. Then I have to run and empty the tank 2 times before you're allowed to use the water. So we've got the reverse osmosis system all installed. You can see down here, it did leak at that pressure point that I was concerned about, but I tightened it down just a bit more. Seems to be doing fine. But you can see everything is in place. I've got all the things hooked up. I do have to fill up this tank 2 times and then empty it out. Like I said, this was kind of my fear for the pressure point, and it did leak a little bit, but hence why we have this here. But as you can see now, this is dry, dishwasher's running. It seems to be working well. See how the pressure goes? Good. Now I just have to empty out this tank 2 times before we can use it, and then we should have on-demand purified water. So a couple things. I do really think this system would work well for a fully off-grid, even gravity-fed system if you had enough pressure. You might need a booster pump or something like that. But it's a really good way where you probably could purify water. Again, I'm not the authority on this. I'm just saying from my experience of what I've researched, it seems like you could easily purify some rainwater and things like that as well. If you know better, please correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I would trust it. I've trusted filters that are not nearly as advanced for many years in the backcountry. Hope you enjoyed it, and again, like, subscribe. I know it's just a little project, but hopefully you enjoyed and learned something, or if you were looking for this specifically, you have at least a real life installation that you could see. Thanks.